speaking of great time, Pastor Ryan is still away on sabbatical, but we are blessed today with the godfather of the churches here in North Valley, Pastor Darryl. He has been an amazing pastor over at Scottsdale Bible for many, many years, and we are so fortunate to have him here today. So would you please help me in welcoming Pastor Darryl?
Thank you again. Good morning. Oh my, front row. These are the people who really love Jesus. And I promise you, I'll do my best not to spit. All right, we'll just kind of aim this way. I've been, a pastor for over 57 years. I mean, I should be dead by now, but I guess I don't have my homework done, so if I fall, I'll fall forward. But I'll tell you what I've seen from time to time. I'm asked a question, which is really a good question. Because it's a question about something that we all will say we believe, and we know it's in the Bible somewhere, and yet the way we respond to things around us, I'm not so sure we got a handle on, do we really believe it? You see, it's the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 13 says, there's three things that remain: faith, hope, and love. And you ever wonder how those things work? Faith is what we trust, what we believe in. And love is how we manifest faith, how we manifest what we believe. But what motivates the whole thing? What gets you up and out of the bed and year and year out to be consistently following Christ? That's your hope. So it's your hope motivates faith, which basically then is expressed in love. And if we struggle with the hope deal, we're going to lose a little motivation here. And so the question, well, what's the hope? The Apostle Paul writes this letter to this young pastor. It's just a short little letter. Name of the letter is Titus. That's his name. And he gives this interesting statement to Titus in Titus chapter 2. Listen to verse 11 following. For the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation to all men. Now, what was the grace of God appeared the first time that actually provided forgiveness for anybody who wants it? Well, that's the first coming of Jesus Christ. We know he came. We celebrate Easter. We know he was raised from the dead. We know he came the first time. But he says he came instructing us to deny ungodliness, worldly desires, to live sensibly, righteously, godliness present age. Has he been looking around at what this present age is like? But he says, here's how you do it. Looking for the blessed hope. But what is this blessed hope that's going to motivate me to stay faithful in following Christ? He says, the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior, Jesus Christ. It's this blessed hope. It's the fact that Jesus is coming back again. We talk about the second coming of Jesus Christ. Do you really believe he's going to? I read an article in U.S. News and World Report, made an interesting comment that I don't know if I believe it. He says 66% of Americans, including 1/3 who never come to a church, still believe in the possibility of Jesus Christ returning someday. Now, I don't know if that is true, but I know I need to really take a look. Do I still believe it? Because, beloved, it's been a long time. 2,000 years. If he's going to come, where is he? Jay Leno, I got a little brain damage, so I've always loved Jay Leno. And just before he retired, every once in a while he'd say something really significant. And he said this, quote, with hurricanes, tornadoes, fires out of control, mudslides, flooding, severe thunderstorms, tearing up the country from one end to another, and with the threat of bird flu and terrorist attacks, are we sure that this is a good time to take God out of the Pledge of Allegiance? I just kind of went, really, this is not a good time for us to lose our grip, that God has a grip. You see, are we really out of control? Well, I tell you, I see a lot of Christians and they begin to panic. A lot of it has to do with the politics. What's going to happen in November? Boy, if it goes this way, we're all going to die. If it goes this way, we're all going to die. So apparently we're all going to die either way. And so we think that God has lost control and we are heading to some major disaster that's going to throw all of us into oblivion. And wouldn't it not be comforting, Christian, to know there is a sovereign plan being unfolded and God has not lost control? Yeah, but it's getting so bad. And your point is what? Jesus said before he comes again, it's going to get worse. It says it's going to become like the days of Noah. Now, what were the days of Noah like? Well, you go back to Genesis chapter 6, verse 5. And he says, in the days of Noah, only evil was the intent of every man. Everybody wanted to, me, myself, and I'm the Blessed Trinity, take care of me, and I don't care about you. Hello, sounds like it's a little bit of direction we're going in our culture. And so it's not the fact, well, it's going to get better, 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 and then Jesus is going to pop in. No, Jesus said it's going to get worse and worse and worse before Jesus comes. So in one sense, we're on schedule. But there's a word you need to understand as a Christian. The word is eschatology, from two little Greek words. Eschatos, which means last things, and ology, logos, the study of last things. All the word speaks is the study of history. But history that hasn't basically transpired yet. Popular word for it is prophecy. Prophecy. Now, some people get really wild on prophecy. They get what I call prophetic fever. And that can be hazardous to your sanity. You become so heavily minded, you're no earthly good. I mean, we get this preoccupation of the future. Now remember, Paul in 2 Corinthians 5 says, don't you realize we're ambassadors for Christ in wherever we live? How would you feel if you lived in a town and all the ambassadors sent to that town are all having their bags packed, sitting at the airport, waiting to fly out? So this is not about let's all get our pajamas on and climb on top of the roof and wait for the coming of Jesus. No, this is about stop panicking about what is happening around us and your future. Speaking of prophecy, did you know that there are over 300 prophetic statements in the Old Testament that were literally fulfilled in history at the first coming of Jesus? Over 300. And I kind of go, is that supposed to be impressive? Well, Professor Peter Stoner, chairman of the department at Westmont University or College, over the Department of Science, chairman of the department in Pasadena, he calculated what would be the probability of just 48 of the 300 prophecies being fulfilled in one man's life by chance. And his calculations brought him to 1 chance in 10 to the 180th power. Now again, you're impressed because you got math. The rest of us are going, what does this mean? So he goes on and he explains. Apparently the smallest unit we have is an electron. It takes 2.5 million billion electrons to form a line 1/8 of an inch long. That's an electron. The biggest thing we've got, unit of measure, is a light year. It's a distance that light travels in 1 year, traveling at 186,000 miles per second. And if you're interested, it's 5.88 trillion miles. Now, our universe, they've measured it, and it keeps expanding. But presently, they say that our universe is about 4 billion light years in diameter. Now, let's visualize this thing. So Stoner goes on to say, picture a ball that is 500 quadrillion times the diameter of our universe. Fill it up with electrons. Paint one purple. Mix it all up. And then ask this guy to go into the ball, and the probability of you picking the right electron on your first shot, 1 in 10 to 180th power. That's just 48 of the 300. You say, yeah, but see, you understand, I'm very intelligent. And I happen to know that Jesus could have used the Old Testament for his morning devotions. I mean, he could read the prophecies and then just do the prophecies because he read them. And so there's no probability, there's no chance. He just did whatever he was told that the Messiah would do and fulfill these prophecies. Well, the interesting thing is Jesus says that's exactly what I did. For example, apparently he predicted his virgin birth. I'll give you a moment for that one. Born in Bethlehem, predicted that hundreds of years before, but he arranged to be born in Bethlehem, had a good talk with his mom while he was in the womb, kind of a quiet voice. He predicted that he would be betrayed for 30 pieces of silver, arranged that. He arranged to be tortured and scourged. He arranged two thieves, to die and be executed with him. I know you got friends, but do you think you got two buddies that would do that for you? He arranged to be speared in the side by a Roman centurion. He arranged, this is the kicker, he arranged to rise from the dead on the third day. Here's the kicker. None of these prophecies were metaphorical. They were all in history, literal. I say that because I have people say, well, Jesus returned, but he returned metaphysically, metaphorically. He kind of returned in my heart, and he's the warm fuzzy that makes me smile. That's a bunch of baloney. If all 300 that were predicting his first appearance were historically, literally fulfilled, what would that say for the next 300? Just think it through with me. What's interesting is that after Jesus is crucified, then he's raised from the dead. And he's on the earth for about 40 days. And he's ready to go back to the heaven. And yet the apostles gather together in this mountain in Acts chapter 1. And they've got the same question we have. Lord, it's been a long time since you promised to come again. Well, that's what they're saying. Lord, it's been 40 days. When are you going to fulfill your promise and return? Acts chapter 1, verse 6. And so when they had come together, they were asking him, saying, Lord, is it at this time you're going to restore the kingdom to Israel? Big smiles. And they said to them, it is not for you to know the times or epochs, which the Father has fixed by his own authority. But he says, you're going to receive power and be my witnesses until I do come. And then he says, in verse 9, and after he had said these things, he was lifted up while they were looking on, and a cloud received him out of their sight. And they were gazing intently as they had wetted their no, it's not, they didn't wet anything, but boy, I sure would have. It says, and as they were gazing intently into the sky, while he was departing, two men in white clothing stood beside them and said to the men of Galilee, why are you standing there looking in the sky? Well, I could hear Peter, did you just see what happened? We saw Jesus walk on water, stop storms. We never saw him fly. And all of a sudden, he just was taken up in a cloud and like he went through a porthole. And this Jesus who has been taken up from you into heaven, here's what they say. Will come in just the same way as you have watched him go into heaven. You're kidding me. Well, how does the book of Revelation begin? In chapter 1, he says this, verse 7, behold, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn over him, even so, amen. I had this debate going on. This guy was saying, you Christians are nuts. Because calculation is simply this. If Jesus left the planet 2,000 years ago, traveling at the speed of light, he wouldn't be outside of our universe yet, 2,000 years later. But it doesn't say Jesus took a tour of Pluto and Jupiter. It says he was caught up and then caught in a what? In a cloud. Like it was some picking porthole into some other dimension. You believe there's other dimensions? Do you really believe a God who can create everything would only create one dimension? We happen to know of another dimension called heaven. Mount Zion. Hebrews 12 tells us that the angelic beings live there, and there's multiple dimensions, and he, boom, boom, he's gone. But here it says when he returns, remember what the angel said? Just like you saw him go, you're going to see him return. And here it says he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him, even those who pierced him. And all the tribes of the earth will mourn over him, and even so, amen. What's interesting is here's John, Jewish John. He's quoting another prophet hundreds of years before named Zechariah. And Zechariah writes this in chapter 12. And this is from where John quotes. And he basically says in verse 10, and I will pour out on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplication, so they will look on me whom they have pierced. Now, interesting, pierced. Crucifixion wasn't introduced into Rome when Zechariah wrote this. They didn't understand what this pierced thing means, like crucifixion. And they will mourn for him, and as one mourns for an only son, they will weep bitterly over him, like one who bitters over the firstborn. This is quoted in Revelation 1:7. But then you drop your eyes over to chapter 14, and there's more. In verse 9, the prophet says, and the Lord will be king over all the earth. When does he become king over all the earth? In that day, the Lord will be the only one, and his name the only one. Well, how does that happen? Go back to verse 3 of Zechariah chapter 14. Then the Lord will go forth. Well, let me go to verse 1. Behold, a day is coming for the Lord when the spoil taken from you will be divided. Then the Lord will go forth and fight against those nations as when he fights on a day of battle. And in that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives in front of Jerusalem on the east. I've been on that mount 5 times. And it does face the east, the Golden Gate. Jesus is going to land on the Mount of Olives and split that mountain into a valley. Was this metaphor? This is literal. And he's talking about it right here. So the kicker is this. All right, the Bible's pretty clear. He's coming again, and it's going to be a big deal out of the cloud. Everybody's going to see it, just like they saw him leave. But it's been 2,000 years. Is it ever going to happen? Hard to be my hope and motivation when I'm waiting so long. Although I'm glad he waited until August of 1966, or I would be in deep mud. Because that's when I came to Christ. Could it be it's taken so long because he's waiting for something? Well, what could he be waiting for? A lot of people do not realize that the reason Jesus has not returned yet is because the kingdom he's going to receive when he comes is a gift. It's a gift from the Father. Do you remember the name Daniel? Daniel was apparently a really sharp kid. He was alive at the time that Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, came and beat the spit out of the southern kingdom, took them in exile to Babylon for 70 years. Daniel was one of the young, smart kids that he took because he wanted to brainwash him. Well, Daniel keeps on being used and serving in the king's court even after Nebuchadnezzar's gone, and the next king is gone, the next king is gone, Cyrus is there, and Daniel's still standing because he's got this quirky gift of interpreting dreams and seeing visions. And they weren't just because of a bad pizza, because, for example, he did that thing for Nebuchadnezzar and it all came literally true. That's how he got up there upstairs into the court. Well, here we are in Daniel 7. And it says in verse 9, Daniel says, I kept looking until thrones were set up and the Ancient of Days took a seat. Who's this Ancient of Days? Well, his vesture was like white snow, his hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was ablaze with flames. Its wheels were burning fire. A river of fire flowing, coming down, and the court sat. This is a picture of a courtroom. And the judge, the Ancient of Days, and he's there to bring judgment. Now, who is this guy? Well, isn't it God? Apparently, it's the Father. Verse 13, he says, I kept looking in the night vision, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, note, with the clouds of heaven, one like the Son of Man was coming. And he came up to the Ancient of Days. Boy, I'd be scared to death to do that, because it looks like he's not in a good mood. And was presented before him, and to him was given a gift. So the Ancient of Days is not God the Son, it is God the Father. Well, who's the Son of Man? If you study the Gospels, what is the favorite self-designation of Jesus, of himself, in the Gospels? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, especially Luke. So much that the critics say, well, he never said he was the Son of God. He only said he was the Son of what? Son of Man. Why do you think he kept referring to himself as a Son of Man? First of all, if he goes around telling everybody I'm the Son of God, they're going to hit him with rocks and kill him right away before he gets to the cross. But he keeps talking about, because it's a reference back to Daniel chapter 7. This is the Son of Man. But watch what the gift was. To him was given dominion, glory, a kingdom, that all the peoples, nations, and men of every language might serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which will not pass away. His kingdom is one which will not be destroyed. Why has it been 2,000 years? Because here it says that God is populating the gift. If he would have given, the Father would have given Jesus the gift, soon he ascended up to heaven. Said, okay, son, turn around, off you go. And the kingdom is established in 50 years after Jesus' first coming. Well, first of all, it'd be a pretty small kingdom. It'd be pretty Jewish, wouldn't you say? And what was the promise of the gift? That you would have representation from every tongue, every nation, every country. So what has the Father been doing for 2,000 years? He's populating the gift. And at least he waited till 1966 so I could be part of that gift. And apparently he's waiting still for you and others. What's interesting to me is Jesus. Think about it with me. Jesus, average size of people that 5'8". So we're talking about little Jewish rabbis, 5'8". Is God in a bod. Claimed he created the heavens and the earth. He gets in trouble with Rome. He's crucified, executed, and that's supposed to be some kind of sacrifice for our sin. God raises him from the dead, and if I believe it, I go to heaven. I hit the lottery. Well, think about it. That is the most unbelievable story ever told. Who's ever going to believe that? What amazes me is I don't understand why I believe it. But then I understand that Jesus said all along, no one's going to be able to believe this story about me. Nobody. And this is not a test. It's not an IQ thing. I know some really smart people who do not believe in Jesus Christ. And I know some really smart people who do. I know some num-nums who do not believe in Jesus Christ. And I know some num-nums who do. So this isn't about IQ. Then what's it about? John chapter 6, verse 44. In John chapter 6, verse 44, Jesus comes out and says, no one comes into me. No one's going to believe the story about who I am and why I'm here and what I'm providing for you by my death. So he says, no one comes unto me unless anybody know the verse? John 6, 44. Unless the Father draws him. Verse 45. For the prophets say that God the Father himself from heaven will cause them to learn and recognize who Jesus Christ is. And so it wasn't that you were so brilliant, but apparently your heart was open to truth, that it was God the Father who caused you to recognize who his Son was and is and will be. And guess just what happened? You've been added by the Father to the what? To the gift. To the gift. How long? Wouldn't you like to be the guy who leads the last guy to Christ? And then God goes, that's it. Here's the gift. Be on your way. Take it to the earth. where every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. That's why it's been taking so long. But what's interesting to me is this. Do you really believe he's going to come back? Jesus was with some of his men, actually 3 of them, Peter, John, and they're asking him an interesting question in Matthew 24. Oh, so Peter, James, and John, they want to know, Jesus, you're talking about you're going to come back as a king over a kingdom over the whole world. Could you tell us more about that? And in Matthew 24, Jesus simply begins to explain to them. He says, and what he does in the first part of chapter 24, read it yourself, he summarizes the first 7 chapters of the book of Revelation. And then he says this. He says, but immediately after that tribulation, that's what the book of Revelation is about, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light, and stars will fall from the sky, and the power of the heavens will be shaken. Boy, people will notice that one, even CNN. And then the sign of the Son of Man, take note, sign of whom? The Son of Man will appear in the sky. What just happened? The Father finished populating the gift of the kingdom, has just given it to the Son, like in Daniel 7, and who's returning to the earth with it? Then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory, and he'll send forth his angels abroad. Well, you talk that way, you're going to get in trouble. And he does get in trouble. Jesus gets arrested. And as you know the story, he's arrested and he's brought to court before the judge of Israel, Caiaphas, the high priest. And they're trying to bring witnesses against Jesus, and they're giving him a hard time. Well, he said he was going to knock down the temple in 3 days and raise it up again. And the high priest, notice it says in Matthew 26, verse 62, and the high priest stood up and said to him, do you make no answer? What is it that these men are testifying against you? But Jesus kept silent. Not a word. He's at court. And he says, the high priest gets ticked and puts Jesus under oath. Take note, court. I adjure you by the living God that you tell us whether you are the Christ, the Son of God. Now some say Jesus never was the Son of God, never meant. People misunderstood him. Well, if he was going to say, whoa, I've been misrepresented by these stupid apostles, and I never intended for you to believe this about me, this is a good time for him to back away, right? He's under oath, he's in court, adjured by the high priest, and look at how he backs away. Are you the Christ, the Son of God? Boy, if he's going to deny it, this is a good place to do it. Jesus said to him, you've said it yourself. Nevertheless, I tell you hereafter, you shall see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power, coming on the clouds of heaven. The high priest didn't take it very well. He tears his garment and he says, this is blasphemy, and that's why they murdered Jesus. Because of his claim that he was going to what? Come in the clouds and return what? Under oath. A second time. Jesus is coming again. That's what the book of Revelation is all about. As a matter of fact, in Matthew 25, Jesus kind of summarizes it again. And he simply says in verse 31 and 32 of Matthew 25, and when the Son of Man, notice again, the Son of Man, when the Son of Man comes in his glory, what does it mean in his glory? He just received what from the Ancient of Days? The gift. And what's the gift? Because it includes you, the kingdom, the dominion, and all the angels with him, and then he will sit on his glorious throne, a throne given him by the Ancient of Days, and all the nations will gather before him, and he will separate them like one separates sheep from goats. My, did you know, I mentioned the first coming of Jesus Christ, 300 prophecies. all fulfilled literally. But did you know that there are over 300 prophecies in the New Testament alone talking about a second coming? Did you know that 1 out of every 25 verses in the New Testament is about his second coming? Do you know that every New Testament writer, no exception, talks about the second coming of Jesus Christ? The angel said, this same Jesus will come just in the same way you watched him go into heaven. You go, well, I still got one problem. It's been 2,000 years. Father's been populating the gift. I understand that. Kind of glad he waited for you. There's some people I love. I hope he waits a little bit longer for them. But I'm 75. Am I going to miss this thing? I mean, what if he doesn't come for another 100 years? Oh, here's the good news. I'm not going to miss a thing. I may just get to meet him before you. Because it's a coming and going thing. Because Jesus said in John 14, the guys are all bummed out because they really think that Jesus is going to beat up Rome and set up the kingdom and they'll be the big dogs. Now all of a sudden he's talking about the Gentiles arresting him and killing him, crucifying him. So their dreams of power and glory in the kingdom is destroyed. So they're all moping around. And so in John 14, the first 3 verses, Jesus is in the upper room with them. He looks at them and they're just all, and you know what Jesus says? Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many dwelling places. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again. You mean in your glory? No, I will come to that room, that hospital room, that car accident. I will come to that room that you take your last breath, Darryl. And I will come and receive you to myself. So that where I am, you will be also. That poor guy, he's one of the thieves on the cross. And he's arguing with the other guy, when are we going to get off the cross? And finally he figures it out. Jesus doesn't deserve to be here. He shuts the other guy up. And this is all in Luke 23. And the guy, remember, he's on the cross. He looks to Jesus and says, will you remember me when you come into your kingdom? Now, when you're hanging on a cross, you've been tortured and you're nailed to wood, you don't blow smoke, do you? What was the first word out of the mouth of Jesus in response to that question? Today, you will be with me in paradise. For I will come and I prepared a place for you. And if I prepared a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, so that where I am, you will be also. That's why Paul says in 2 Corinthians 5, absent from the body, present with the Lord. Philippians chapter 1, for me to live is Christ, to die is better. What do you mean to die is better? To depart and be with Christ. How does the 23rd Psalm end? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. How does it end? And I shall dwell in the house of the Lord. How long? So you see, it's a coming going thing. If it's going to be 100 years before Jesus returns and receives the gift of the kingdom from the Ancient of Days, and every knee, every bow, and there's no more elections, even if that's 100 years away, that's okay with me. Because I'm going to meet him going. Maybe some of you will meet him coming. But either way, I will vote this November. Because Romans 13 says I need to be a good citizen. And I am engaged and I have my political opinions. And don't worry, because I'm not going to share one of them with you. You want to know why? Because I thought it was God and country, not country and God. And how many of us are panicking about the future? We're all going to die after November if it doesn't go my way. Oh, come on, beloved. Jesus said, It's going to get worse. So don't get too excited either way. But the fact is, for you, who's your king? Who's coming back again? Either he'll come back to that moment you breathe your last and receive you to himself and take you to where he is, so that when he does come and receive the gift, guess who gets to come with him? You and me. And so this is not about anything other than, don't panic about the future. Muhammad said, quote his parting words, I don't know the purpose of life. Buddha, his parting words, seek the truth. Confucius, his parting words, I am not the way. Jesus, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father, gets into that kingdom, but through what? Through me. That's why my prayer, I hope you have had that opportunity to speak to your Heavenly Father, because, beloved, you can't forgive somebody who doesn't believe they need forgiveness or they have never asked. Can you remember a time that you said, Lord, I have sinned. You gave me life. You gave me breath. And I turned my back on you. And I serve myself like I am my own God. That's sin. That's the cosmic betrayal. And God, forgive me. Because that's what Jesus Christ did on the cross in my place. See, beloved, I know it's been 2,000 years, but we're almost there. I more so than you. I'm almost there. Either way. So, Father, I thank you for the privilege of sharing this truth of hope that motivates our faith, that gives expression of our love for each other and for you. And Lord, just to think, either way, coming or gone, we're almost there. Jesus, we're almost there.
For help, you know what it's like to be tired and only a shell of yourself. You start to believe you don't have what it takes, 'cause it's all you can do just to move, much less finish the race. But don't forget what lies ahead. Almost home, brother, it won't be long. Soon all your burdens will be gone. With all your strength, sister, run free. Hold up your head, keep pressing on. flesh and our bone,